At the bomb disposal scene, my fingertips were moving along the curves of the filmed Kane's body, searching for the invisible trigger of death. The moment the alarm was clear, my wife actually uploaded a video clip of me searching her body to the internet. Everyone, take a good look. This isn't a bomb disposal, it's clearly using the job as an excuse to grope a female celebrity. Touching her so skillfully, just how many women's clothes have these hands of yours disarmed? Does bomb disposal require touching every inch of the body? Ask your wife. I find you disgusting. Public opinion exploded instantly. Amid the storm of controversy, the police department acted swiftly, removed from frontline duty, given a major demerit, annual bonus wiped out entirely. So it turns out that risking my life to save someone earns not a medal, but the stigma of a professional pervert. Since professionalism and dignity can be trampled at will, from today on, this bomb can be disarmed by whoever wants to. I'm done. Now the entire police department can't sit still anymore. Chapter 1. Charles. This is the lesson you deserve. We've been married for 2 years already, and you still don't know how to avoid suspicion? Even if you're a bomb disposal expert, you should understand how to keep proper boundaries with the opposite sex. He looked calmly at my wife, the woman who had been married to me for 2 years, yet now seemed like a completely different person from the one I once knew. Are you done? Francisca froze for a moment, then her anger flared even more. What kind of attitude is that? Am I wronging you? Does bomb disposal require you to touch someone all over like that? Seeing my silence, she grew even more agitated. If I hit the nail on the head, used to admit it. Who are you putting on that expression for? Don't you think you're in the wrong at all? Think whatever you want. The indifferent tone I used when I said that completely enraged Francesca. Her face flushed instantly, her voice sharp and shrill. Fine, think whatever I want, Charles. I want a divorce. Right now. After shouting that, she grabbed her bag from the table, turned around, and stormed out. Director Lopez frowned, cleared his throat, and spoke. Look at what you've done. You've made Francesca this angry. Public opinion online is fermenting right now, and it's having a huge negative impact on the police department. So here's what you'll do. Write a deeply self-critical report, and next week, read it out loud at the department-wide meeting. You will admit that your conduct was inappropriate. He looked at him and didn't answer. His gaze flickered. He then tapped the table with his hand, reclaiming the authority of the director. This is the only chance the department is giving you. Think carefully about your next steps. The next day, a disciplinary notice about me was posted on the city police department's internal network. Non-standard law enforcement procedures. Improper handling of a public figure. Charles, comrade, is hereby removed from frontline duty and fined his entire annual bonus. Every word felt like a public execution. My old subordinate, Dorian, secretly sent me a message. Charles, we all know how dangerous that bomb was. You definitely did that to defuse it. But right now, you should endure it for the time being. Director Lopez is furious. He turned off my phone screen, fully aware of the situation. Director Lopez's son, Jeremy, who had just returned from abroad with a polished resume, had joined the department last month. He had long wanted to install his son in my position as the bomb disposal team leader. Francisca's outburst had given him the perfect excuse. He returned to my workstation and silently turned on my computer. He carefully organized and printed all the information related to the high-risk explosives I was responsible for, case files, disposal records, and follow-up handling plans, one by one. Then, he formatted my work computer and completely erased all the research data and tactical notes stored on my personal hard drive. 1 week later, at the department-wide assembly, Director Lopez stood on the stage, his voice loud and firm. In view of Comrade Charlie's non-standard conduct, the department has decided to remove him from the position of bomb disposal team leader. The audience below was deathly silent. Next, let us welcome with warm applause the newly recruited overseas returned PhD, Comrade Jeremy. A young man in a brand new police uniform, his hair meticulously styled, stood up and saluted the entire hall with a textbook perfect police posture. Director Lopez looked at him with satisfaction and announced, from today onward, Comrade Jeremy will officially assume the role of bomb disposal team leader. Seating among the audience, he watched coldly as this carefully orchestrated transfer of power unfolded. Jeremy's first move after taking office threw the entire bomb disposal unit into chaos. At the first full team meeting, he spoke confidently and at length. Captain Charlie's old methods were too unorthodox and outdated, neither precise enough nor aligned with international standards. It was precisely this kind of rough, loose management that led to the previous public opinion incident. He slammed the thick operations manual onto the table. From today on, All procedures must be carried out strictly according to this manual. We must align with international practices and build a modern bomb disposal unit. My former subordinate secretly messaged me the vent. Boss. This manual is ridiculous. Even operation code names are required to be English abbreviations. He says it looks more international. For a simple suspicious package check, we're required to submit a 3,000-word risk assessment report first. By the time it gets approved, the suspect will be long gone. I looked at the messages and didn't reply. This was only the beginning. Chapter 2. In the afternoon, a new notification from Jeremy popped up in the work group chat. Trial measures on optimizing bomb disposal procedures and aligning with international advanced explosive disposal systems. Attached was a PDF more than a dozen pages long. It used all kinds of complicated charts and definitions to lay out an entirely new bomb disposal workflow template. It required that all terminology use the full official names issued by the International Explosive Ordnance Disposal Association, prohibited any commonly used abbreviations, and added extensive sections for data analysis and case citations. The group chat fell into instant silence. A few seconds later, private messages from colleagues began bombarding my phone. Charles, what the hell is this asshole doing? Defusing bombs like writing a PhD dissertation? Is he sick or what? We're a combat unit. That's the point of all this flashy nonsense? During today's drill, he insisted on calling C4 by its full chemical name. Isn't this just taking off your pants to fart? This isn't aligning with international standards, it's dumping unnecessary workload on us. If a real mission comes in, by the time his process is finished, the bomb will have already exploded. Pure bureaucratic formalism. He was just about to reply when Jeremy walked up to my workstation and knocked on the desk. Captain Charles, no. He should call you Officer Charles now. His chin was slightly raised. His contempt completely undisguised. Your new seat is over there in the corner, where an ordinary officer should be. After all, we need to reflect the discipline and professionalism of a specialized unit. Oh, and your work computer stays here. You need to inspect it, to make sure you don't take any of the team's core materials with you. He looked up at him briefly, said nothing, and quietly began packing my things. The medals of honor in my drawer were painfully eye-catching. He thought back to 3 years ago, when the former director personally went to the special forces to recruit me. He had gripped my hand and said, Charles, come to us. EAJ give you the greatest autonomy. With your top-tier bomb disposal skills, you be able to save more lives. Thinking about it now, it was a complete joke. Jeremy seemed to think that wasn't enough and added another remark. Alright, from now on, your words and actions in the department should reflect our professionalism. Follow the issued manual strictly. He stopped what I was doing and looked at him. Then let me ask you something. What are the main differences in explosive characteristics between RDX and TNT? Jeremy's expression stiffened visibly. He stammered for a long time. Well, that of course, depends on molecular structure and specific detonation velocity data. It's a kind of. Seeing him like this, he let out a cold laugh. So, is it that you don't know? Or that it's not written in the manual? He ignored him after that. But he clearly felt humiliated and leaned down, whispering into my ear. Alright. He heard you touch the top movie star all over her body. Compared to touching your wife Francesca, which one felt better? Let's exchange notes. The next second, he grabbed his collar and slammed him hard against the wall. Say that again. The movie star felt better. Right. Otherwise you wouldn't have used bomb disposal as an excuse to keep touching her for so long. I threw a punch, and Jeremy went down instantly, clutching his rapidly swelling, bruised mouth. A glint of scheming satisfaction flashed through his eyes. Then he let out an exaggerated scream. Charles assaulted me. Call an ambulance. The scene instantly descended into chaos. He stood there, watching his performance coldly. Sure enough, after a thorough examination at the hospital, Jeremy was diagnosed with a mild concussion and ordered to rest under observation. With that medical report, he successfully put me on the internal investigation list. He was demoted to a duty officer, and my workload became much lighter. He no longer participated in any emergency bomb disposal missions and strictly followed the procedures of an ordinary officer. Patrols, writing reports, organizing equipment, handing over shifts on time, getting off work on schedule. Yesterday, a suspicious explosive device was discovered at a shopping mall. Out of habit, a colleague called for me. He took one look and calmly told him, "Go find Captain Jeremy. He's the one in charge." The colleague said anxiously, "Captain Jeremy is still in the hospital. He says his head still hurts." He let out a cold laugh, said nothing more, and walked straight out of the scene. He could dodge emergency incidents with the flimsiest excuse. Why hadn't they taken a single day off in 3 years after taking the post? Why? He stopped lingering over any explosive device for even one extra minute. Over the following week, he was completely marginalized. Once a bomb disposal expert, he had now become the biggest joke in the entire department. He didn't take care at all. A week later, the disciplinary decision came down, suspension pending investigation. With an indefinite wait for further handling. Former comrades who had once fought shoulder to shoulder with me all lowered their heads. No one dared to speak up for me. As I walked out of the police headquarters building, Francisca's sports car screeched to a stop in front of me. Jeremy got out of the passenger seat. Gauss is still taped to his face. Wow. Look who it is. Isn't this our bomb disposal hero Charles? Getting kicked out now, eh? Francisca clung to his arm, her tone vicious. Charles, do you know why I never let you touch me? Because every time I think about these hands of yours touching those filthy bombs, I feel sick. She tossed a plastic bag out of her purse. Inside were all the gifts I had given her. Our wedding ring, necklaces, even the matching bracelets she had insisted I buy back when we were dating, along with the divorce papers. All this trash. Take it back. Jeremy wrapped an arm around Francisca's waist. His posture intimate. All right. There is something I never told you. Francisca and I were already together before you two got married. If it didn't take for using your connections to get into the bomb disposal unit, why would she ever have looked at a brute like you? He deliberately tightened his arm around her waist.
While you were gone these past few days, we had a great time on the marital bed you bought. I looked at them and suddenly laughed. 2 years of marriage, so it had been a lie from the very beginning. I swiftly signed my name on the agreement and tossed the documents back to her. I wish you a slut and a dog. Made for each other, together forever. Chapter 3. As I turned to leave, I heard Jeremy cursing furiously behind me. It didn't matter anymore. When Dorian came to my place to return some items I'd left behind at the precinct, he handed me a handwritten letter. You remember the actress you saved, right? The one named Margarita. I nodded. She's very grateful that you saved her, but the posts she tried to make to clarify things for you were blocked by her agency. She wrote you an apology letter and asked me to make sure it reached you. Dorian sighed. No one has it easy. Not her. Not you. I stayed silent and said nothing. After resting at home for a few days, I bought a plane ticket to South City. Just as I was about to board, Dorian's call came through. Charles, something's wrong. Margarita's been strapped with a bomb again by a deranged fan. My heart sank. This time they were even more brazen. They tied up her brother too. When it came time to defuse it, Jeremy couldn't even find the trigger wire. Instead, he was leering and groping Margarita. Now the police have been completely surrounded by her fan club. They're demanding answers. We caught the criminal. She said there was only 1 hour to defuse the bomb. Jeremy wasted so much time dithering. Now there are only 50 minutes left. The call ended, and Director Lopez's call came in immediately after. Charles, get your ass back to the unit right now. Margarita Law's brother is the CEO of the law group. If anything happens, I'll make sure you pay for it. Listening to Director Lopez's frantic voice, I suddenly laughed. Director, don't be in such a hurry. First, I'm just a duty officer right now, and I'm suspended. I neither have the authority nor the qualification to participate in any bomb disposal operation. Second, isn't your precious son Jeremy Lopez the bomb squad captain, a returned from abroad PhD? With an expert like that around, why are you calling me? With that, I hung up. Dorian sent another message, panic written all over it. Charles, Jeremy Lopez cut the wrong wire. The bomb's timer suddenly sped up. Only 40 minutes left. Chairman Law is terrified. He's already called the mayor to apply pressure, demanding the police take full responsibility. The entire department is on high alert. Provincial Police Chief Sanchez and several deputy chiefs have all rushed to the scene. Then another message followed. Director Lopez has started spreading rumors inside the unit, saying you deliberately hit a critical structural diagram of the bomb before, just to steal credit. That's why Jeremy couldn't make the right call in time. He's also saying you knew about the bomb's special characteristics all along and kept quiet on purpose, just to watch Jeremy embarrass himself. I looked at my phone screen and let out a cold laugh. This level of scapegoating, he'd truly perfected it. Before one wave could settle, another rose. In another warehouse, a sealed World War II-era bomb suddenly began leaking. The alarm blared with a piercing shriek. Dorian's WeChat live feed continued. Jeremy's flailing around, ordering the team to bring in the blast containment tank. He's tried several methods, but still can't stabilize the situation. He even chose the wrong chemical neutralizer. When a colleague tried to correct him, he snapped back and cursed him out. Chief Sanchez says we have to immediately activate the emergency plan, deploy the remote bomb disposal robot. This is the last hope. The remote bomb disposal robot, the external control system, a top-tier piece of equipment imported from abroad at a cost of millions, known as the Hand of Life. Jeremy went to start the robot, but the system failed to boot. It keeps triggering alarms. A colleague shouted anxiously. Only Captain Charles fully understands this machine's control system and core parameters. He's the one who operates it every time, don't touch it recklessly. But Jeremy impatiently shoved him aside. I've used foreign equipment before, the principles are all the same. What would an old fossil like you know? It must be that the previous parameter settings were wrong, out of line with the latest international standards. He forcefully rebooted the system and tried to directly modify the core operating code. Charles, this is bad, the robot's smoking. Under Jeremy's violent meddling, the robot's main unit let out a harsh screech. The screen flashed violently, then went completely black. The stench of burnt plastic filled the air. This hand of life, worth millions, was completely paralyzed. 2 high-risk explosives, one about to detonate, with 2 lives hanging in the balance, one liable to leak at any moment, threatening the entire city. The panic of the crowd, the questioning of the media, and the blaring alarms merged together, plunging the entire special police unit into utter chaos. Chief Sanchez's face turned deathly pale. He nearly collapsed on the spot. With trembling hands, he personally called the Russian manufacturer's engineers for help. On the other end of the line, the Russian spoke stiff, broken English and regretfully explained. The nearest engineer was in Oceania, and even the fastest flight would take 2 days. Despair enveloped everyone. Just as Chief Sanchez was about to hang up, the Russian engineer added one more thing. Perhaps you could try contacting Professor Simon's team, the ones who assisted us with the system calibration back then. If I remember correctly, he has a prized student named Charles. I believe he works at your police department. Chief Sanchez's hand froze in midair. He suddenly turned his head and stared straight at Director Lopez. Director Lopez's face turned ashen in an instant, more lifeless than a corpse. He knew better than anyone. The Charles the engineer was talking about, the top disciple of academician Simon, a titan in the domestic explosive ordnance field. That Charles. Chapter 4. That Charles, the very man he had personally suspended, who was at this very moment waiting at the airport, preparing to go on a trip, was me. Sanchez, the chief director, still had his hand frozen midair, his gaze cutting into Director Lopez like a blade. Where is Charles right now? He asked, enunciating every word. Director Lopez's forehead was slick with sweat. His lips trembled, but no sound came out. At the airport, Dorian answered, forcing himself to speak. Charles was suspended and is about to leave for South City. Chief Sanchez snatched the phone and dialed my number himself. The airport announcement was urging passengers to board for the final time. I looked at the name flashing on the screen, Chief Sanchez, and answered unhurriedly. Comrade Charles. His voice carried an urgency I had never heard before. The department needs you. The people need you. I leaned back in my seat, watching planes take off and land outside the window. Chief Sanchez. I'm a suspended duty officer. I'm not qualified to handle any of this. The suspension order is void. I'm restoring all your positions and authority right now, he said urgently. Whatever permissions you need, the department will fully cooperate. What about Captain Jeremy? Isn't he the expert? He's already been restrained. You're the only one who can resolve this crisis now. Listening to the faint alarm sounds coming through the phone, I knew the moment was right. I'll come back, but I have 3 conditions. Say them. First, I want Jeremy and Francesca to pay for what they've done. Director Lopez's nepotism must also be held accountable. There was a brief silence on the line. Then Chief Sanchez replied decisively, agreed. Second, I will form my own team. No one is allowed to interfere with my work. No problem. Third, I said, glancing at the light above the gate indicating it was closed, I want Director Lopez to come to the airport personally to pick me up. On the other end of the line, Director Lopez sucked in a sharp breath. Fine, we're on our way. I hung up, picked up my luggage, and headed toward the arrivals hall. 10 minutes later, police cars screeched to a halt. Director Lopez was the first to rush out, his face ashen as he looked at me. Captain Charles, please come back. I stood there without moving. Is that how you ask someone for help? Director Lopez's face flushed a dark, liver red. Under the curious gazes of surrounding travelers, he clenched his teeth and bowed deeply. Comrade Charles, please come back and save the situation. Only then did I step forward and get into the car. Sirens wailed as we sped back, running red lights all the way. Director Lopez sat beside me, drenched in sweat. Captain Charles, about what happened before. I cut him off. Director, now is not the time for that. He shut his mouth awkwardly. Chapter 5. As the car entered the police compound, before it had even come to a full stop, Chief Sanchez was already walking toward us. Captain Charles, you're finally back. I nodded, taking off my coat as I walked inside. Status on site. Margarita and her brother are being held in the studio. 15 minutes left on the bomb. The leak at the warehouse is getting worse by the minute. Handle the studio first. I put on the bomb disposal suit and stepped into the command center. On the screen, Margarita and her brother were tied to chairs, a bomb strapped to each of their chests. Jeremy sat slumped in a corner, head down, not daring to look at me. "Shut down all surveillance and communication equipment," I ordered. "Why?" Chief Sanchez asked, puzzled. "My methods aren't suitable for being watched." He hesitated for a moment, then complied. I entered the studio alone. When Margarita saw me, her eyes lit up instantly. "Officer Charles." I made a silencing gesture and began inspecting the bomb. As expected, it was the same as last time, a biological trigger. But this one was more complex. 2 trigger lines were intertwined, where pulling one would affect the other. Officer Charles, Margarita's brother, Ryan, suddenly spoke. "As long as you save Margarita Law, the law group will reward you generously." I didn't even glance at him, continuing my work. "Shut up." He froze, clearly not used to anyone speaking to him that way. Seconds ticked by. Sweat slid down my forehead. Once dismantling this kind of bomb began, it could not be stopped. Otherwise, click, the first trigger wire was cut. 30 seconds left. The studio was so quiet you could hear heartbeats. Margarita had her eyes tightly shut, her long eyelashes trembling uncontrollably. Her brother Ryan looked calm on the surface, but his clenched fists betrayed his tension. "Officer Charles." Ryan suddenly lowered his voice. If only one of us can be saved, please save Margarita." My fingers continued to move swiftly among the wires. I didn't even look up. "I don't need you to tell me how to do my job." The second trigger wire was even trickier than the first. Thin as a strand of hair, nearly invisible under the lights, and more terrifying still, it pulsed faintly, as if alive. This was the most advanced biological trigger, capable of sensing subtle changes in the host's heartbeat. The moment it detected abnormal fluctuations, it would detonate instantly. "Margarita, take a deep breath," I said, my voice calm and steady. She froze for a second, then obediently inhaled deeply. "Think of something happy." I can't think of anything." Her voice trembled with tears. "Then think of your cat, or your favorite dessert, anything." She forced herself to regulate her breathing. The rise and fall of her chest gradually steadied. On the monitor, her heart rate slowly dropped from 130 to 90. "Now." I precisely cut the second trigger wire. The timer emitted a soft beep, the red digits freezing at 0. 3 seconds. It was done. Chapter 6. Margarita seemed to have all the strength drained from her body. She collapsed against the chair, gasping for breath as tears finally spilled from her eyes. Ryan let out a long sigh of relief when he looked at me again. There was something different in his gaze, an expression layered with gratitude and scrutiny, complex and searching. I pressed the communicator, my voice still steady. "Studio is secure. Moving to the warehouse." The moment I stepped out of the studio, Chief Sanchez rushed up excitedly and grabbed my arm. "Captain Charles, that was incredible. Truly incredible. What's the situation at the warehouse?" "The leak is getting worse. Jeremy's earlier mistakes made the bomb extremely unstable. It could explode at any moment." We moved quickly toward the warehouse area, our footsteps echoing through the empty corridor. Through the thick blast-resistant glass, the World War II-era bomb was clearly visible, dark yellow liquid continuously seeping out and winding its way down the metal casing. "All personnel, retreat beyond the safety line," I ordered, my tone leaving no room for argument. "Captain Charles, what equipment do you need?" "Bomb suit, robot," a young officer asked nervously. "Just a basic toolkit." Under everyone's stunned gazes, I carried only a silver toolbox and walked inside. The heavy blast door slowly closed behind me with a dull thud. I knew this bomb too well. 3 years ago, I had personally overseen its sealing. Every detail of it was etched into my mind. Its structure was highly unusual. It was equipped with an anti-high-tech detection mechanism. The more sophisticated the equipment, the more likely it was to trigger detonation. Ironically, the most primitive methods were the safest. I carefully opened the corroded casing. The situation inside was worse than I had expected. Jeremy's reckless interference had caused the once stable, separated chemical agents to mix, generating large amounts of bubbles. The acrid stench was noticeable even through the gas mask. They had to be separated immediately, or the consequences would be unimaginable. "Captain Charles, do you need assistance?" Dorian's voice came through the communicator, heavy with concern. "No." I cautiously used a specialized siphon to extract the mixed liquid. My arms had to remain absolutely steady. Even the slightest tremor could trigger catastrophe. 1 drop, 2 drops. With every drop removed, the threat level diminished slightly. Just then, my phone suddenly vibrated in my pocket. At a moment like this, I should have hung up without a second thought, but for some reason, I answered. "Charles." It was Francesca's voice, trembling with sobs, panicked and disordered. "Come to the hospital, quickly. Jeremy, he tried to kill himself." My fingers jerked violently, the siphon nearly slipping from my grasp. "His suicide attempt has nothing to do with me." My voice was cold as ice, yet my movements grew even more precise. The siphon slid steadily back into the bomb as I continued extracting the mixed chemicals. It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, Jeremy wouldn't have broken down like this. Francesca screamed hysterically on the other end. He's still in the emergency room. If anything happens to him, I'll never forgive you for the rest of my life. Are you done? Without waiting for her reply, I hung up and shut the phone off. This was not the time to be distracted. The slightest mistake could turn the entire building into ashes. The mixed liquid inside the bomb had mostly been separated now. The dark yellow chemicals slowly stratified inside the glass container. But the most troublesome part was the old-fashioned fuse. After decades of corrosion, it had become as fragile as a dead leaf. One wrong move, and it would trigger a chain reaction. Chapter 7. Sweat slid down from my temples, soaking into the lining of the bomb suit and spreading into dark stains. Outside the blast-proof glass, I could feel everyone watching in absolute silence, barely daring to breathe. Captain Charles. Chief Sanchez's voice came through the communicator, cautious and tentative. What's the situation? Don't talk. Every ounce of my focus was locked onto that tiny fuse. This type of World War II-era fuse had an extremely peculiar design. To dismantle it safely, 3 hidden contact points had to be pressed simultaneously. The first 2 weren't too difficult, but the innermost one was positioned at an exceptionally awkward angle. I tried several tools, but all of them were too large to reach it. Time ticked by second. The chemical agents were still reacting slowly, producing more and more bubbles. At most, I had 5 minutes left. I set the tools down, took a deep breath, and decided to do it by hand. My fingertips slipped through the tangled wiring, barely brushing against the 3rd contact point. The icy sensation of metal came through the gloves. Now, 3 fingers applied pressure at the same time, precisely holding all 3 contact points. Click. A soft sound, the fuse came free. I let out a long breath and carefully placed the fully dismantled bomb components into the blast containment canister. Only when the lid sealed shut did the tension finally drain from my body. When I walked out of the warehouse, I realized my legs were slightly unsteady from holding the same posture for so long. Resolved. That single word released everyone's pent-up breath. Chief Sanchez rushed forward and gripped my hand tightly. Captain Charles, today, we truly owe everything to you. Without you, the consequences would have been unimaginable. I withdrew my hand and shifted my gaze to Director Lopez standing at the back of the crowd. Jeremy Lopez is in the hospital. Do you know that? His face changed instantly. He clearly had no idea. What happened to him? Attempted suicide, I said flatly, as if it had nothing to do with me. Your precious son's mental fortitude is really that weak. Director Lopez staggered back a step, nearly collapsing, saved only by an officer beside him. At that moment, Ryan walked over, supporting a still-shaken Margarita. Officer Charles. Thank you, Ryan said, handing me a business card. Matte black background, gold lettering, minimalist, just a name and a phone number. If you ever need anything, contact me anytime. I glanced at the card but didn't reach out to take it. No need. As I turned to leave, Margarita gently tugged at my sleeve. Her fingers were still trembling slightly, her eyes filled with lingering fear and gratitude. Officer Charles, could I treat you to a meal, just to thank you? Not convenient. I pulled my sleeve free and left without looking back. Back in the office, Dorian hurried in after me and closed the door behind him. Charles, that was ice cold. You didn't even give the law group face. He lowered his voice, admiration written all over his face. Do you know how valuable Ryan's card is? People would kill for a chance to curry favor with him. I didn't respond, continuing to pack up my personal belongings from the desk. A framed photo of Francesca and me still sat there. I casually pulled the photo out and tossed it into the trash. Where are you going? Dorian noticed my actions, concern creeping into his voice. On leave. Chapter 8. This time, no one dared to stop me. Just as I stepped out of the police headquarters, a black Maybach slowly pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Ryan's composed face. Officer Charles. His voice was calm yet left no room for refusal. Care to talk? I opened the door and sat in the spacious back seat. Ryan Law took a glass of whiskey from the built-in bar. The amber liquid swirled gently in the crystal glass. I don't drink. He smiled faintly, took a sip anyway, every gesture radiating the unhurried confidence of a business elite. Officer Charles, I'll be direct. He set the glass down, his gaze sharp. The law group needs someone like you. Not interested. $5 million a year. Company car. Housing provided. All you need to do is take charge of security for the group's senior executives. His tone was as casual as if he were talking about the weather. That's several times what you make now. I turned and looked him straight in the eyes. Do you think I'm short on money? Everyone is, he said softly, swirling the glass as the ice clinked. Especially someone who's been betrayed by his wife and left with nothing. My gaze turned icy. You investigated me. Just a necessary background check. He placed the glass down calmly. I know about Jeremy and Francesca. I also know how much you've suffered these past days. So come to the law group. I can give you everything you want." He leaned forward, lowering his voice, including the chance for revenge. I let out a cold laugh. "Revenge? With you? With me?" His eyes were sharp as blades. "In the business world, when the law group stomps its foot, the entire city trembles. The Lopez family's little bit of influence is nothing in comparison." The car slowly stopped at the entrance of my residential complex, the engine humming low. "Think about it." He handed me a check, the number on it enough for an ordinary person to struggle for a lifetime. "This is the down payment." I didn't even look at it. I pushed the door open and got out. "Save it to hire bodyguards for your sister." Back home, an emptiness rushed at me. What had once been a warm little home now contained only cold furniture. Francesca had taken everything that belonged to her, not even a single photo left behind, as if those 2 years of marriage had never existed. Just as well. I loosened my tie and tossed it onto the sofa. A hot shower washed away some of the exhaustion clinging to my body. Just as I stepped out of the bathroom, towel in hand, the doorbell rang abruptly. Through the peephole, I saw Francesca standing outside. Her eyes were swollen red, her hair disheveled, none of her former elegance remaining. "Charles, I know you're home." She pounded on the door, her voice hoarse. I opened the door and looked at her without expression. "What is it?" With a thud, she dropped to her knees, tears spilling instantly. "Charles, I was wrong. Jeremy forced me. He threatened me with my nude photos. So you helped him frame me." My voice was cold as ice. I had no choice. She clung to my leg, crying hysterically. "He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd post the photos online and ruin me completely." I crouched down, lifted her chin, and forced her to meet my eyes. "Francesca, do you know something?" My thumb brushed lightly against the corner of her eye. "When you lie, your right eye twitches unconsciously." Her sobbing stopped abruptly, a flicker of panic flashing through her gaze. "Get out." I stood up and slammed the door shut, sealing her desperate cries outside. With acting this bad, it was a shame she never became an actress. Chapter 9. Early the next morning, my phone was flooded with messages. Jeremy had attempted suicide and was undergoing emergency treatment in the hospital. Director Lopez had been suspended pending investigation. And Francesca had posted a long online exposé, detailing my so-called emotional cold violence during our marriage. Quite the spectacle. I scrolled through the news expressionlessly, my mind utterly unmoved. Just then, a call came in. The name on the screen read Margarita. "Officer Charles, have you seen the news?" Her voice carried a cautious note of concern. "Yes, those things aren't true, right?" Her tone was gentle, worried. I didn't answer directly. "What do you need?" I want to ask you to be my private security consultant." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been receiving threatening letters lately. I'm really scared." On the other end of the line, I could hear the rustle of paper, as if she were flipping through those letters. I thought of what the Russian engineer had said. Maybe it was time to live a different kind of life. Time and place. When I pushed open the door to the lounge, Margarita was curled up in the corner of the sofa. A stack of letters lay scattered across the coffee table in front of her. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting mottled shadows across her pale face. These all arrived in the past few days. Her agent, Lara, stepped forward quickly, her voice tight with anxiety. "We've already reported it to the police, but they said there's insufficient evidence to open a case." I casually picked up a few of the letters. Most were printed, filled with vulgar language, every line reeking of warped possessiveness. But when I reached the very bottom letter, my fingers stopped. "This one's different. Unlike the others, it was handwritten in fountain pen. The handwriting was neat and elegant, the wording refined. At first glance, it looked like a love letter, but reading it closely sent a chill down the spine. Margarita, you looked beautiful in that blue dress yesterday, but don't wear it so short next time. I don't like other people looking at your legs. Margarita's lips trembled. That's impossible. I really did wear a blue dress yesterday, but it was ankle length. Any surveillance footage? I asked. The apartment hallway and the residential common areas all have cameras. Lara answered quickly, exhaustion creeping into her voice. We checked, nothing was captured. I held the envelope up to the light and noticed an almost invisible pinhole near the seal. He installed a micro camera. Lara sucked in a sharp breath and instinctively wrapped her arms around herself. That's terrifying. This person is a complete psycho. Call the police, I said, setting the envelope down. This already constitutes a serious threat. No. Lara raised her voice abruptly, then realized her loss of composure and lowered it. Margarita is negotiating a high-end endorsement right now. The brand cares most about image. If this kind of scandal gets out, the deal is dead. Margarita looked at me helplessly, slender fingers clutching the hem of her clothes. Officer Charles, can you help me? Investigate privately. I thought of Ryan's offer that day, then met her eyes filled with pleading. After a moment of silence, I spoke. I can, but everything follows my plan. That afternoon, I moved into the apartment directly opposite Margarita's. The view was clear, allowing direct observation of her entrance and windows. I set up a high-powered telescope by the window and installed concealed cameras near the door, forming a rudimentary surveillance network. If anything feels off, notify me immediately. I handed her an emergency call device. Press this button, and I'll be there within 3 minutes. Margarita took the device, her fingertips brushing lightly against my palm. She nodded solemnly, her eyes filled with unconditional trust. Night fell. I was adjusting the monitoring equipment when the doorbell rang suddenly. Through the peephole, I saw Ryan standing outside. I heard you agreed to protect Margarita. He got straight to the point after coming in. Yes. He handed me a manila envelope. This contains all the suspicious individuals our company has on record. It might help you. I opened the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of documents, detailing the backgrounds of several extreme fans. When I flipped to the last page, my breathing stalled. Chapter 10. Jeremy's photo stared back at me from the page. Him? We found that he used to be the vice president of Margarita's fan support club. Ryan's voice turned cold. He was expelled from the club half a year ago for repeated stalking and harassment of Margarita. In an instant, all the scattered clues snapped together in my mind. Why Francesca had suddenly turned on me. Why Jeremy had gone to such lengths to destroy me. Because he was obsessively in love with Margarita. Because he was jealous that I could approach her openly. Because he was afraid I would follow the trail and uncover the stalker hiding in the shadows. Him. Thank you. I put the files away, my voice calm but resolute. This person, leave him to me. After seeing Ryan off, I immediately called Dorian. Find out when Jeremy will be discharged from the hospital. Charles, what are you planning to do? Dorian asked, concern evident in his tone. I looked at the warm lights glowing from the apartment across the street and said slowly, word by word, settle accounts. 3 days later, at dusk, Jeremy was finally discharged. He was wrapped in an ill-fitting black trench coat, his face hidden behind sunglasses and a mask. Avoiding the main entrance, he slipped out through the hospital's back emergency passage, hurrying toward a rideshare car parked by the road. I leaned against my car door, quietly watching his panicked figure. The moment he saw me, his entire body stiffened. Behind the sunglasses, his eyes widened in terror. Instinctively, he turned to run back. Take one more step. My voice echoed clearly through the empty parking lot. And I'll expose everything you did in the fan club. You're secretly filmed. You're stalking, to the public. His feet froze in place, his shoulders trembling slightly. Charles, he slowly turned around, his voice muffled behind the mask. What do you want? I walked toward him step by step and reached out to remove his sunglasses. His eyes darted around frantically, unable to meet mine. The dark circles beneath them showed just how badly he'd been living these past days. Those threatening letters, you sent them, didn't you? I don't know what you're talking about. His voice shot up, sharp with guilt. Do you need me to jog your memory? I pulled out the documents Ryan had given me and flipped through them page by page in front of him. March 2019, you were expelled from the fan club for secretly photographing Margarita while she was changing. July 2020, you impersonated staff and attempted to sneak into her hotel room. Want me to keep going? His face grew paler by the second, fine beads of sweat forming on his forehead. You framed me not just for the team leader position, I said coldly. It was jealousy too, wasn't it? He suddenly snapped his head up, madness blazing in his eyes. So what if it was? She was supposed to be mine. What right did you have to touch her? Do you know how long I've liked her? Since her debut, I collected all her posters, all her albums. What right do you have to just appear out of nowhere and get close to her? So that was it. At last, every last doubt fell into place. I put the files away and turned to leave. There was no point wasting words on a lunatic. Stop, he screamed hoarsely behind me. Where are you going? To tell Margarita. You're not worthy of saying her name. He lunged at me in a frenzy, grabbing my arm, his nails digging deep into my flesh. Charles, let's make a deal. Don't tell anyone, and I'll tell you a secret. What secret? About your parents' deaths. His voice dropped, dripping with malicious delight. It wasn't an accident. I spun around instantly, grabbed his collar, and slammed him hard against the wall. What did you say? He grinned smugly, flashing pale teeth. Looks like you didn't know either. Go ask your beloved director Lopez, he knows very well. I released him. My mind went completely blank. Chapter 11. The scene from 20 years ago, my parents dying in the accident at the Red Star chemical plant, flashed vividly before my eyes. Could it be that the fire that took their lives had hidden truths behind it? Just then, my phone rang. The name on the screen was Margarita. Officer Charles. I got another letter. Her voice was choked, tightly suppressing tears. He says he's coming to see me tonight. I forced down the turmoil surging inside me and replied as calmly as I could. Lock the doors. I'm on my way. Behind me, Jeremy burst into manic laughter. Go on, protect your precious lady. But the truth? You'll have to face it sooner or later. I ignored him, jumped into my car, and sped off. In the rearview mirror, he was still standing there, a twisted silhouette frozen in place, on the road, gripping the steering wheel with one hand. I sent Dorian a message. Dig up everything on the Red Star chemical plant explosion from 20 years ago. The more detailed, the better. If my parents' deaths truly weren't an accident, then what kind of lie had I been living in all these years? And what role had Director Lopez played in it? The car screeched to a halt in front of Margarita's apartment building. I looked up. Her windows were pitch black. That wasn't right. She had said she'd be waiting for me at home. With her personality, she would definitely have left the lights on. I drew my handgun, chambered around, and rushed into the building. The elevator indicator was stuck on the top floor. No time to wait. I sprinted up the stairs and stopped in front of Margarita's apartment. The door was ajar, left with a narrow gap. The truth could wait. Right now, someone needed me. The darkness leaking through the doorway carried a sense of dread. I slipped inside sideways, my back against the wall, gun sweeping across the living room. A faint, cloyingly sweet smell hung in the air, definitely not any perfume Margarita usually wore. Margarita, I called in a low voice. No response. My heart thudded heavily in my chest. Jeremy's words and the mystery surrounding my parents' deaths coiled around me like venomous snakes, but now was not the time to be distracted. The living room was empty. I quickly checked the bedroom and bathroom, also empty. Cold sweat instantly soaked my back. Had I come too late? Just then, a barely audible sound, like fabric rubbing together, came from the walk-in closet. I raised my gun and moved closer, then yanked the closet door open. Margarita was there, her mouth sealed with tape, wrists bound behind her back, curled up among a pile of clothes. Her eyes were wide open, tears streaking her face. The moment she saw me, her body began to tremble violently. I immediately crouched down and carefully peeled the tape from her mouth. He just climbed out the window. Her voice was hoarse, filled with terror. He can't have gone far. I rushed to the window. The street below was empty, only the night wind stirred a few fallen leaves. Whoever it was, he moved fast. Did you see his face? I asked, swiftly cutting the restraints around her wrists with my knife. She shook her head in shock. Angry red marks ringed her wrists where the ropes had bitten into her skin. No, he covered my eyes from behind. He was very strong. I helped her trembling body onto the sofa and poured her a glass of water. What did he say? He said. Margarita clutched the cup, her knuckles white. You belong to me, always. No one can take you away. She looked up at me, tears shimmering in her eyes. Officer Charles. I'm scared. Seeing her so fragile, a fierce urge to protect her, mixed with burning rage toward Jeremy, ignited in my chest. I pressed those emotions down, keeping my voice steady. It's okay now. You can't stay here anymore. I'll move you somewhere safe. After settling Margarita into a safe house, Dorian's call came through. Charles, I found something. The old files on the Red Star chemical plant. There's a problem with the fire determination report. His tone was unusually grave. The original site investigation records were extremely sloppy. Several key suspicious points were deliberately ignored. Get to the point. The records show traces of an accelerant near the ignition point, something that didn't belong to the plant at all. And one of the lead officers on the case back then was Director Lopez. I clenched my phone, my knuckles turning white. Jeremy's venomous words echoed again in my ears. Go ask your beloved Director Lopez. He knows very well. Chapter 12. So it was true after all. The fire that had taken everything from me was never an accident. 20 years of belief collapsed in an instant. A crushing sense of absurdity and an icy hatred surged through me. Charles, are you still there? Keep digging. My voice was hoarse. Everyone who ever handled this case, don't miss a single one. After hanging up, I leaned against the cold wall. My parents' blurred smiles flashed through my mind for a fleeting second. So I had mistaken my enemy for my benefactor for 20 years. So the justice I had devoted my entire life to protecting concealed such filthy truths beneath it. Chief Sanchez's call abruptly cut in, breaking my thoughts. Charles, Jeremy escaped from the hospital. The officer guarding him was knocked unconscious. His voice was frantic. We found this in his ward. A photo was sent to my phone. It showed the rooftop opposite Margarita's safe house. A huge arrow, drawn in red marker, pointed straight at her bedroom window. A provocation. A naked, undisguised provocation. I took a deep breath, forcing down the killing intent that was threatening to burst out of me. Chief Sanchez. My voice was cold as ice. About the old Red Star chemical plant case from 20 years ago, I think it's time we had a proper talk with Director Lopez. The interrogation room lights were harsh and white, illuminating Director Lopez's ashen face. He sat across from me, hands cuffed, resting on the cold metal table. Red Star chemical plant. I spoke each word slowly, locking my eyes onto his. His pupils shrank violently, and he instinctively avoided my gaze. Charles, listen to me. That matter was very complicated. So complicated that it required covering up murder. I slammed the copied files Dorian had compiled onto the table. The papers scattered. The words, procedural violations and suspected arson, glaringly obvious. Look me in the eye and tell me, were my parents' deaths an accident? Director Lopez's shoulders sagged. It was as if his spine had been pulled out of him. He remained silent for a long time, so long that the air itself seemed to freeze. It was orders from above, he finally said, his voice dry like sandpaper scraping. That land the chemical plant sat on, there were bigger plans for it back then. Your parents, and several older workers, refused to sign the relocation agreement. They blocked too many people's path. Every word was like a poisoned dagger, plunging straight into my heart. So you set the fire? My voice trembled with restrained fury. No, I didn't light it. He suddenly looked up, eyes bloodshot. I only received orders afterward, to suppress everything and classify it as an accident. Tears seeped from his clouded eyes. Charles, I had my reasons. They threatened my family. Reasons. I shot to my feet, both hands slamming onto the table as I leaned toward him. So just to protect your family. My parents deserved to die. They deserved to be burned into charcoal. The overwhelming rage and grief nearly tore me apart. 20 years of faith, 20 years of conviction. In this moment, all of it felt like a cruel joke. Whose orders? I forced myself to calm down, gritting my teeth as I asked. Director Lopez's lips trembled. His eyes flickered. He was still hesitating. Jeremy escaped. I threw out the final bargaining chip coldly. Who do you think he'll go silence next? You. Who knows the truth? Or Margarita, the woman he's obsessed with? That sentence shattered his last line of psychological defense. He collapsed back in the chair, face deathly pale, and muttered a name, a powerful name that frequently appeared in local news. After recording everything, I closed the notebook and turned toward the door. Charles, he cried out desperately behind me. I'm sorry to your parents, but all these years, I truly treated you like a son. I stopped at the doorway, not turning back. Raised me, I said as I pulled the door open, the hallway light slicing through the darkness behind me. So I could keep being your dog. The door slammed shut, cutting off all his sobbing. Outside the interrogation room, Dorian was waiting. His expression was grim as he handed me a tracker display. Charles, we've locked onto Jeremy's phone signal. It's in the outskirts of the city, an abandoned logistics warehouse. The signal's weak and intermittent. On the screen, a red dot blinked in a gray zone marked as abandoned land. And, Dorian added, pulling up the warehouse's original structural blueprint. This place used to be an old storage facility of the Red Star chemical plant. Every thread converged at this moment, pointing to the same final destination. The truth behind my parents' deaths. Jeremy's madness. The threat hanging over Margarita. All of it would end there. Chapter 13. I checked my sidearm and chambered around. Gather reliable men and surround the place. My voice was completely flat. Without my order, no one is to act rashly. It was time to end all of this. The abandoned warehouse was filled with a pungent stench, a heavy mixture of rust and chemicals. Using the load-bearing pillars as cover, I slipped inside silently. From the distance came Margarita's suppressed, broken sobs. Stop crying. Jeremy's voice echoed through the empty warehouse, tinged with manic excitement. Soon it'll all be over. When Charles gets here, I'll make him watch with his own eyes. Following the sound, I moved closer and saw Margarita tied to a chair in a corner piled high with discarded crates. Her face was pale, her mouth sealed with tape, but the instant she caught a glimpse of my figure, a faint spark of light flickered in her eyes. Jeremy had his back to me. In his hand was a homemade handheld detonator. Wires spread out from his feet, connecting to several crude explosive devices placed around Margarita. He wore ill-fitting work clothes, his hair disheveled, his entire being teetering on the edge of instability. I know you're here, Charles. He suddenly turned around, his bloodshot eyes sweeping the darkness wildly. Come out, or I'll blow her up right now. I slowly stepped out from behind the pillar, raising both hands to show that I was unarmed. I'm here. Let her go. This is between you and me. Between us. Jeremy sneered, waving the detonator. It ended between us a long time ago. The moment you touched her. He gazed at Margarita with obsessive fervor. She's mine, my goddess. What right does a brute like you have to touch her? So you framed me because of that. Not just that. A twisted delight spread across his face. And your nosy parents, too. If they hadn't refused to let go of that chemical plant back then, my father wouldn't have. But it doesn't matter. Soon you'll all be reunited. So he really did know the truth. He might even have been involved. Jeremy, I said, trying to steady his emotions as I slowly moved forward. Your father has already confessed. The people who ordered him have been taken into custody. There's no reason for you to die for them. Taken into custody, as if he'd heard the biggest joke in the world. He burst into hysterical laughter. You think this is the end? How naive. The people behind them, you can't touch them. I'm finished. I'm finished. His laughter cut off abruptly, his eyes turning hollow and despairing. But I can't go alone. Margarita, come with me, and Charles, too. Let's go together. His thumb slowly pressed down toward the button on the detonator. Wait, I shouted sharply as my body lunged forward like a cheetah. Don't you want to know what Margarita would say to you in her final moments? That sentence made him hesitate. In that 1,000th of a second, I had already closed the distance. One hand clamped tightly around the wrist holding the detonator, while the other curled into a fist and smashed viciously into his face. Bang. Jeremy's nasal bridge shattered. Blood sprayed as he screamed and fell backward, but with his other hand, he actually pulled a dagger from his waist and stabbed fiercely toward my lower abdomen. I twisted aside. The blade sliced through the fabric at my side, leaving a streak of blood. Pain exploded, but I didn't stop. I grabbed the hand holding the knife and wrenched it hard. Crack. The clear sound of a wrist bone breaking rang out, accompanied by his pig-like howl. The dagger clattered to the ground. I snatched the detonator and slammed him face down, pinning him with my knee between his shoulder blades. It's over. Panting heavily, I spoke into the communicator beneath my collar. Secure the target. Defuse the bombs. The special operations officers who had been lying in wait outside surged in, restraining the still struggling, screaming Jeremy, while the bomb disposal experts began carefully handling the explosives. I walked over to Margarita, ripped the tape from her mouth, and cut the ropes binding her. Almost immediately, she threw herself into my arms. Her body trembled violently from fear and lingering shock, and warm tears quickly soaked into my shoulder. It's okay now, I gently patted her back, my voice hoarse and softer than I realized. It's all over. She lifted her head, looking at me through tear-filled eyes. In those beautiful eyes, relief at surviving, deep gratitude, and something else I couldn't yet identify were all tangled together. Charles, she choked, calling my full name. I didn't push her away. The wound at my side still throbbed faintly. My parents' injustice had finally been cleared, and the long night seemed at last to be pierced by a glimmer of dawn. The warmth and reality in my arms diluted the ice-cold hatred that had been building for so long. I lowered my head, looking at her lashes still wet with tears, and replied softly. Chapter 14. Outside the warehouse, police lights flashed, illuminating the gradually paling sky. The smell of disinfectant in the hospital was sharp and stinging. While the doctor stitched the wound at my waist, Margarita kept holding my hand tightly, her fingertips icy cold. It's just a superficial wound, no internal organs were injured, the doctor said after finishing the bandaging. Glancing at us, try not to get it wet, and change the dressing on schedule. I nodded. Before I could say anything, Margarita spoke up first. Doctor, are there any dietary restrictions? Anything he needs to be careful about? She asked in detail, the concern in her eyes almost spilling over. The doctor gave a few instructions and then left. Only the two of us remained in the hospital room. She looked at the gauze wrapped around my waist, her eyes reddening again. I'm sorry, this is all because of me. It has nothing to do with you. I cut in, my voice a little hoarse. Jeremy's madness had been a seed planted long ago. I just happened to be swept into the storm. This is his problem. There was a knock on the door. Ryan and Director General Sanchez walked in together. Officer Charles, how are you feeling? Director General Sanchez asked with concern in his tone, though his eyes held more relief than anything else. The Lopez family's cancer had been removed, and the bigger players behind them dragged into the light as well, an enormous achievement for him. I won't die, I replied flatly. Ryan then looked at Margarita, frowning slightly. Margarita, you've been through a shock. Come back with me and get some rest. Brother, I'm fine. Margarita shook her head, not letting go of my hand. I want to wait until he's done here. Ryan's gaze lingered for a moment on our interlocked hands, but he didn't press the matter. Turning to me instead, he said, Officer Charles, this time it was all thanks to you. Jeremy, his father, and the entire network behind them have been fully brought under control. The evidence is solid. What awaits them is the full punishment of the law. I gave a brief feeling no great emotional ripple inside. The anticipated thrill of revenge never came. All that remained was a weary sense of finality. My parents' injustice had been avenged, but what was lost would never return. As for your parents' case, Director General Sanchez continued, we'll establish a special task force to reinvestigate it. We'll make sure they receive justice and that your family gets the compensation it deserves. Compensation? I looked up at him, the corner of my mouth tugging into a smile devoid of warmth. And what could possibly compensate for it? Director General Sanchez was momentarily at a loss for words. Ryan Law stepped in at just the right moment, breaking the brief awkward silence. Officer Charles, the invitation I mentioned before still stands. The position of security consultant at the law group is being kept for you. He paused, then added, of course, the salary and authority can be discussed further. Before I could answer, Margarita gently shook my hand, her eyes carrying a cautious, hopeful look. I gazed out the window. The sunlight was just right. I couldn't go back to the police force, and I didn't want to. I need time to think, I said, not agreeing immediately. Ryan nodded. Of course. Get some good rest. If you need anything, contact me anytime. He patted Margarita on the shoulder. Don't keep Officer Charles too long. After they left, the hospital room fell quiet once more. Do you think you'll accept my brother's offer? Margarita asked softly. I don't know. I stared at the ceiling. I'm tired. I want to rest. Then rest, she said gently. Go somewhere warm. Soak up some sunshine. She hesitated, her cheeks tinged with pink, her voice dropping even lower. If you don't mind, I could go with you. I turned my head and met her clear gaze, tinged with a hint of shyness. Some frozen corner deep in my heart seemed to quietly melt, just a little, under that look. Chapter 15. 1 month later, by the sea. The ocean breeze carried a salty dampness as it swept over us, the setting sun dyeing the surface of the water a deep orange red. I lay back on a beach chair. The wound at my waist had already healed, leaving only a faint pink scar. A lot had happened over the past month. Director Lopez and the powerful figure shielding him from behind the scenes were formally arrested and were awaiting trial. My parents' case was overturned. They were posthumously recognized as martyrs. The police department recorded a commendation for me, and the resignation I submitted was also approved. Francesca came to see me once. She cried her eyes out, said she'd been deceived by Jeremy, and wanted to get back together. I didn't open the door. She cried outside for half an hour, then left in frustration. I heard later that she had left the city. What are you thinking about? Margarita walked over carrying 2 glasses of juice and handed one to me. She was wearing a simple white dress, her face bare of makeup. Compared to how she looked on screen, she seemed less polished, but more real, softer somehow. Over the past month, she had turned down most of her work, using recuperation and thanking her lifesaver as excuses, and had stubbornly followed me here. Nothing much. I took the juice and had a sip. The cold liquid slid down my throat. The verdict's been handed down, she said, sitting on the lounge chair beside me and gazing at the distant horizon. Jeremy got multiple charges, life imprisonment. His father got 15 years. The others behind them didn't get away either. She paused, then turned to look at me. My brother had your parents' tombstones renovated. You can go see them when you're back. Thank you, I said. Ryan always handled things so thoroughly there was nothing to fault. This past month, we'd spent every day together. She was no longer the superstar Margarita, just an ordinary girl who was a little clingy, occasionally got mildly sulky, and like staring at the sea in a daze. She clumsily helped me change my dressings, agonized for ages over what to eat because I'd said anything, and got excited like a child whenever she spotted a pretty shell. We didn't talk much, but when silence fell, it never felt awkward. Charles. She suddenly called my name. Her voice was very soft, made unsteady by the sea breeze. What are you planning to do from now on? I haven't figured it out yet. That was the truth. Leaving a familiar battlefield behind. The future was a fog. Then what about me? She turned toward me, looking straight into my eyes, her gaze filled with an all-or-nothing kind of courage. What plans do you have for me? The waves rolled in, crashing against the shore, and against the defenses around my heart. I looked at her. The sunset scattered flecks of gold in her eyes, and clearly reflected within them was my own silhouette. Everything from this past month, her cautious steps closer, her quiet companionship, the unease and hope in her eyes right now. I had seen it all. I wasn't made of wood. It was just that the scars left by my previous marriage ran too deep, making me instinctively resist getting close again. But she was Margarita, different from Francesca. I set the juice down, stood up, and held out my hand to her. She froze for a moment, then placed her hand in my palm, letting me gently pull her up. Let's go, I said, holding her hand as we walked slowly along the damp sand. I'm hungry. Let's go back and eat. I didn't give a direct answer, but the sudden light that burst into her eyes was more dazzling than the sunset itself. She squeezed my hand tightly, a bright smile lifting the corners of her mouth. Okay,